like I'm outside.
Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I keep doing this every time. Go really close. Hello, good evening. Happy Thursday. I'm a bit late. I was meant to be on like 2 minutes ago, but you know, life calls. So welcome to another Theatre and Tonic. My name is Emmy. I run Carpe Diem Emmy, which is a lifestyle, theatre and travel blog. And my Theatre and Tonic series is based on talking to creative and casting creatives within the theatre industry. So I've spoken to quite a few people. I had a week off last week because I was shattered, and I'm back with 2 episodes this week. Mark, let's not talk about the Wikipedia. I showed everyone it at school today and they were quite impressed. So do excuse the look for today. It's been a long day, and I will be joined by Sean Weeding in a minute from Bristol Old Vic, which is really exciting. She's one of the producers there, and as you all know, theatres are reopening from next week. Yes! So as you can hear in the background, I've got I'm Going Home, which probably feels the most fitting song right now. But I don't know how we're all feeling about going back to the theatre. I'm very excited. I'll be back for the theatre, in the theatre next Thursday, so a week today, which feels a bit crazy. So Sean is here, so I will add her in. My Rocky Horror music. And we'll get her in and we'll get started.
Hello.
Hello, here she is.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
This is so exciting. I don't have social media anymore, so this is all a completely new world to me, but I am loving it.
Woohoo, welcome. How come you don't have social media? Is it just
It's not to get too deep too quickly, but I think it's a mental health thing. I think it's I just find that in a world where we've got so many distractions, that social media just adds to that, you know, the looking through your feed and, you know, the magnifying glass on Instagram. Ooh, you just spend hours going through that, hours and hours. So I think it's just a minimizing the distractions kind of thing. So I haven't had it in about 2 years.
Wow.
So this is fascinating.
Welcome back to social media.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well actually. I can't believe theatres are opening next week.
I know. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But also, how has this happened? I know everyone's asking this question, but how has it been? Like, you know, we've had periods during the pandemic where we've had glimpses of some shows going on stage, and you know, the amazing like innovative work that people have done in getting work digitized and being able to create a digital platform is incredible. But now the fact we're going to be able to go into theatres and actually be around other people and experience it in person, it's incredible. I honestly can't wait. I can't wait to have people back in the building. It's not a theatre without the people in it. It's really not. You can try as hard as you like, but it's not. So come everyone, come into our theatre.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I'm back next Thursday to go to the Curve for a season launch. And I think that's like the nice way of getting in, because it's more like celebrating what they've done and talking about what they want to happen.
Yeah.
And then I go and see Amelie like a couple of weeks after, and I'm a bit like...
Have you seen it before?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I absolutely love it.
I listen to the soundtrack probably once a week. I run to it. I'll run to the soundtrack. I love it. I really love it. Audrey Bresson is she's a genius. She's an absolute genius.
If Mark's here, who's a theatre blogger from Leicester, he will love you already, because he's also a very big Amelie fan.
Yes, it was incredible. Love that.
So thank you so much for joining us, Sean. It's really nice to just get to talk to you, because obviously, like you say, I think in terms of digital platforms, you guys at Bristol Old Vic have done quite a lot of that. So I think the best way to obviously start this Q&A is, can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do within the Bristol Old Vic?
Yeah, of course I can. So my name's Sian Weeding. I'm the projects manager at Bristol Old Vic. So I'm part of the team that helps dream up what we're going to put on our stages, really. So we've got our theatre, which is a 500-seater, our studio, which is 200, and then our courtyard space, which is a brand new space. We started during the pandemic. We obviously started thinking about ways that we could still bring in audiences, but in a safe way. And the courtyard is our front of house space, so it's where our cafe and restaurant would be. We've reimagined it into a performance space. And we had bands there, we had theatre performances in there, we had dance in there, we had a woman in there who was an artist of blowing and creating bubbles. So, you know, like back in the day, like the traditional kind of old school theatre of people bringing on elephants on stage and like all of this like crazy kind of acts. This really reminded me of this. So there's a woman who had like this trolley that she brought on, and I don't know why I'm telling this story, but you'll enjoy it. She brings on a trolley that she has like all of this bubble kind of magic and material on, and she starts blowing these bubbles up into the air, and everyone's like, oh cool, bubbles, yeah, great. And then she's got a vape pen. So she creates this bubble down on this trolley. Then this bubble is in a kind of mound like this, and then she blows another bubble into the middle of it. And then she takes a vape pen and blows smoke into that middle bubble. She then allows that bubble to float up into the sky. And then the outer one bursts, the inside one bursts, and then the smoke just kind of like floats out into the air. And everyone's like, what is this? Genius. It was
Such
so
a cool
fascinating.
idea.
But during a pandemic as well, like the amount of risk assessment that we had to do involved with that. She's like, can I blow bubbles? And I was like, you're blowing your mouth breath into a bubble that's then going out into the audience. Like the risk involved in that. But it's, yes, that, sorry, what was such a tangent. So I'm part of the team that programs these spaces and also helps stage them. So my day will look like talking to producers about scheduling, dates, talking about deals and negotiating deals, drawing up contracts, managing budgets, all those kind of things. And like at the moment, I'm helping to, I'm assistant producer on Touching the Void, which started in-person rehearsals today. So that has a whole other layer of COVID safety, because we're bubbling the company, because obviously they need to work in close proximity to one another. So we need to make sure that they're as safe as possible. And to do that, we've put them in a bubble whereby they can't interact in close proximity with anyone else apart from who's in the bubble. So I'm at the moment a COVID officer.
Ooh, fancy new role.
So we have hats on. So I'm cleaning. Like my day is literally just going around and cleaning door handles, cleaning postage and all of that. But I tell you what, having people in the building rehearsing for a show, it is such a great feeling. Like you were saying about the theatres opening next week, being able to make a show at the moment in there it's so exciting. So yeah, that's my role. There's a lot going on, Emmy.
There is. So where did your career begin then? So where did you train and how did you get into it? Because I guess for that kind of role,
yeah,
you kind of grow into it, don't you? It doesn't kind of fall at your feet, you know.
Yeah.
I bet there was a lot of work involved with that.
Yeah, it's such a weird one. So like, to take it way, way, way back, I grew up in Plymouth. So I'm from Plymouth and I grew up in Plymouth.
Oh, I love Plymouth.
Do you?
I love Plymouth.
Oh, I love that you love Plymouth.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Do you go
Yeah, I
down
did
there
a lot of dance work down there. I love their dance scene.
Oh, yeah, they've got an incredible dance scene. That's so true. So obviously Theatre Royal Plymouth. When I was young, my granddad used to take me and my family to Theatre Royal Plymouth to watch the Panto. And I can remember going to watch that and I was like, what is this? I was like, what is this? Like it's unlike anything else you see, because obviously you can watch TV and you can watch films, but actually watching something on stage and seeing people physically there, these beautiful, colourful, gorgeous costumes and sets and people in front of me, I was like, whatever this is, I'm going to be a part of it. I want to be a part of it. And so, like so many people, panto was the thing for me that got me into theatre. And then from there, I went to TR2. I don't know if you know TR2. So it's Theatre Royal Plymouth, like second base. It's like that education production centre. They've got an incredible creative learning team there. And I started going to young companies. So I started wanting to create theatre, make theatre, devise it, and just be involved in it in any way. And at that age, I was like 12, 13, 14. I didn't really know what was involved in making a show. All you really know at that age is being an actor, right? All you really know is being a performer. So I was like, okay, I'll be an actor then. If that means I get to be a part of it, I want to be an actor. So I did loads of workshops with a young company at Theatre Royal Plymouth, and we were doing weird stuff. So it wasn't, it wasn't like kind of your traditional stage school kind of training where you're singing and you're reading a lot of like classical texts. It was like frantic assembly, like physical theatre. Do you know what I mean? Like all of that, which I love and I still love. And that's like completely catered my taste to sort of that genre and style of work. But from that, I was way too terrified to audition for drama school. The idea of singing in front of people terrified me. And it wasn't the acting. I was like, maybe I can do that. I think I can do that. But it was the idea of singing that I just had never been trained. So I was like, I just don't want to do that. So I didn't go to drama school. I went to university and studied drama and theatre at University of Plymouth. And it was way too book heavy. Like there was barely any getting up on your feet and actually creating anything. So I dropped out after the first year, and I went back to Theatre Royal Plymouth to try and train as a practitioner. I wanted to teach people how to do the workshops that I'd done when I did Young Company, because they were so inspiring to me. And to supplement that, I started working on the theatre bar. I started working on the reception. I started waiting in the restaurant. I was an usher. And the best thing, right, when you're doing an interview to be an usher, the answer to the question of why do you want to be an usher, the answer is not because I want to watch shows for free. Like, I knew that. I was like, oh, it's because I want to ensure that the audience have a fantastic experience, and I want them to have I want them to be safe, and I want to be able to look after them if there's a fire. It was never like, I want to go and watch Wicked for 4 nights a week for free. That's what I want to do. But I basically wanted to be as close as I possibly could to the work and to be in the theatre and to be in the building. And out of that, I was kind of put up to be Adrian Vinken, who's the chief executive. He's going to step down now, but I was put up to be his assistant, which I was like, oh my God, that sounds incredible. And so I was his PA. And I was also looking after contracting for Theatre Royal Plymouth, which is where I learned about scheduling, where I learned about budgeting, I learned about the deals that are made, and I started to learn about the kinds of companies that made work and put on work, and the way that that was all structured. And I was like, well, okay, I'm quite good at this. I'm quite good at organising. So maybe there's a career in that. But then to get into producing, I didn't even know what producer was at this point. Because producing still, I find it really hard to articulate what it is.
What it is.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're an organizer, you schedule things, you look after budgets, but then, if you look at creative producers, you also have a hand in looking at scripts. You have a hand in, dramaturgy. There's so much attached to what a producer actually is. So at that point, when I was doing all the contracting, I didn't really know what a producer was. But what I did know is that at Theatre Royal Plymouth, the type of work that they were putting on, the big musicals, the Wicked, the Wedding Singers, the Jersey Boys, I was like, this is beautiful and I love it. But what I'm missing is the produced work. Like, I'm missing Theatre Royal Plymouth making their own work. I want to go to a theatre that is a theatre that produces its own work. So I came to Bristol, and I started out at Bristol Old Vic as Tom Morris's assistant. So because I'd worked as an assistant for Adrian in Plymouth, I became Tom Morris's assistant, and Emma Stenning, who was the chief executive at the time. And whilst I was doing that, I was also doing all of the contracting for our visiting work at Bristol Old Vic. And I saw the work that was happening in our amazing producing department, and I met Catherine Morgenstern and Chloe Neldrit, and they are fantastic producers. And I was like, this is a job. I was like, so you get to be close to the work, and you get to facilitate artists, and you get to work closely with directors, and you get to be a part of all that conversation, and audition amazing actors and performers. I want to do that. So I just asked them. I just said, this is the step that I want to take. I really want to jump into producing. And because a PA assistant role, some people love it and take to it for life. Like, some people absolutely love that role of looking after executives. But I was really, it kind of is traditionally like a 2 to 3 year role. You work out what you want to do in the organisation, and then you take a side step into it, or a step up. And I went into producing, and incredibly, Bristol Vic were like, yeah. So I went from being a producing and programming assistant, and then have over the years just moved up into the position that I'm in now. But you're right in that it is not something that you just step into from the offset. There is so much. There's so much kind of. What do I want to say? It's kind of knowledge of the industry. It's knowing companies, but it's also like I said, it's organising and scheduling and having an understanding of the contracting side of it, which you can pick up. Like, you can pick that up. But I find it interesting that places like Central have producing courses now, and I would really love to see how those courses are set up and how they're taught, because it's it's an amazing job to do, but it's so hard to put into words what it is.
Yeah, and like you say, because obviously you developed within that role, so it was like your skills from being an assistant was what got you there, because obviously if you didn't have that, then how were you meant to be a producer?
Yeah, totally. Which is I think it's like a comment as well on how the industry is set up and access points into theatres, because how do you, without all of that graft and all of that knowledge, how do you just step into a producing role without having, I don't know if you did any courses within theatre, but if you do a course, or if you go to drama school and you train to be an actor, then it's assumed that you're going to then become a performer, unless you suddenly go, well, do you know what, I actually really want to be backstage, I want to be doing technical roles, like those kind of things. But with producing, it's so hard to put into words what it is that you actually do, but it's I find the part of it that really, really helps is having that network of people, and just in your head going, okay, who do we know who knows that theatre, and who do we know that works in that, which again is a comment about potential nepotism and just going to the same networks all the time. And it's like, how do we create access points so that people who haven't had all of that graft and the amazing opportunities that I had to be where I am now, how do we make it easier for people to access these kinds of roles?
Absolutely. And I think it's having the confidence as well, isn't it, to do that for yourself? Because like you say, because I trained in dance, and then it was like an assumption that you would become a dancer and that's what you would do. And then I left, I was like, that's not what I want to be. Like, I didn't want to be that, and I was really fortunate. I studied at Coventry, so a lot of their work was about being more than just a dancer. It was about being a facilitator. It was about doing a bit of tech. And those skills are so vital. I don't work in it now, I work in education now, but it's still one of those things that I even sit and think, well, what could have happened if I stuck to it? Where would I have gone?
Yeah.
It's really bizarre, but yeah, like you say. So do you think then, like, being a female has limited your career at all?
So I think about this a lot, and I think it's a really good thing to reflect on, because I would say a really interesting impulse that I have is that as soon as somebody asks that question, I immediately am like, oh no, I've never experienced, I think I've had the same opportunities as what a man would have coming into this industry. And then I'm like, it's not as simple as that though, is it?
No.
I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it's much deeper. I think that you only need to look at a statistic like in 2018, 34% of NPO artistic directors were female. And so the people who are looking after the theatres within the country are the ones who are controlling the stories that are told on the stages are male.
Mm.
And so it asks the question of how the industry is set up. And I think that from a personal perspective, there's a huge imbalance around women and creativity, huge imbalance. And from a personal perspective and how I've sort of interacted it with that and have experienced is people push you into the direction they believe that you should go in.
Mm.
So we all as an industry, I think, have these biases and these conditioned beliefs of certain roles are for a certain gender, and it's always gendered. So you go, oh, a technician, male.
Mm.
Oh, an admin assistant, female. Artistic director, male. Producer, usually female. And so I feel like, yeah, for me, when I want to go into a certain direction, the feedback is, oh no, you need to go over this is where you go. and I feel like we need to acknowledge that. I think we need to acknowledge that there is a bias and there is a conditioning that we've all got, and to work out how we can make sure that there's greater equality so that the generations after us have greater access to more roles within the theatre than just the admin assistants and the producers. And that's not to say those roles aren't fantastic. They really, really are. But it is absolutely within my conscious sort of, my unconscious, I guess, belief of going, well, I can't be an artistic director.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? And so I do believe that we as an industry have got a lot to do in terms of representation across the board. And I truly believe that theatres are taking that seriously now. And I wouldn't be at Bristol Vic unless I didn't think that they were taking it seriously, and they really are, which is fantastic. But I think that my career will still be limited because of it. And my hope is that the generations and the women after me have greater, there's greater balance and greater equality within it. But it's a really great question, because actually I think reflecting on it, like I said, on the surface, I would say no. But like I said, you look deeper and you go, wait a minute. You actually, if I wanted to, if being completely honest, I would love to be an artistic director, but I still believe that I can't because I'm a woman. Yeah.
And I think, like you say, like, I completely agree. And I think the theatre still has a lot of work to do. So I guess for people like yourselves, and, you know, I'm talking to Amina Hamidsma, who's very young and, you know, is an amazing, you know, you two, like, probably the people that should be advocating it a little bit more, you know. Is there kind of more work you want to do on that? And what could you see yourself kind of doing, do you think?
Well, I feel like the thing we were talking about earlier about access points, I feel like there need to be more. I feel like there need to be more initiatives, perhaps. And I know it's a word because we like to throw it around a lot. We need more initiatives, we need more initiatives. But I think there needs to be a greater I think there needs to be a more serious approach to it. I know that sounds a bit silly, but I feel like we as theatres, we get so caught up in this hamster wheel of creating shows and needing to drive income so that we've got the money to be able to create the work. But when we do that, we don't create the evaluation points, as in we don't create the points within the year to actually look back at what we are doing and saying, okay, let's look at our workforces. And by that, I mean our freelance workforce and the people who work in the building, and all of the creators and artists of the shows that we put on our stages, and say, how representative are the people that we're engaging with? And also not just the people that we are engaging with, but the stories that we're telling and the themes that we are expressing on the stages. Like, when we look across the year, can we genuinely say that there is a strong program balance throughout all of it? And it's interesting, we started off this conversation talking about social media and in terms of the advocating, because I feel, in all honesty, I feel really scared to go on Twitter. I feel Instagram I like a lot more, and I think that's because it's got like a more it's obviously visual, isn't it? So yeah. You know, but Twitter, it's just words, and it's so easy to read them and interpret them in a certain way when you can't hear tone. So in terms of advocating, your immediate thoughts are like, oh, well, I'll go on social media and I'll talk about it more. But and where that is having great effect is like, how can organizations take a more serious approach to advocating for women and for, you know, greater representation within the workforces? And a lot of theatres are setting up representation groups to make sure that becomes a serious serious ambition and priority. I think the word is priority with it, because we've just been through such a strange time in I think everyone's life. No one's not been affected by this. And do you remember in the first lockdown when we truly believed that there was going to be a huge change? Do you remember when it was just like oh my goodness, like capitalism's gone, and it's like everyone's going to be so much kinder to one another, and everything's changed in how we approach each other, but also theatre as well. I feel like we need to regain that
passion,
momentum, and come on, let's really make a change here. And so I feel like, I feel, I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like it's something that it's a really good thing to reflect on. It's like, what can we be doing? What can I as a person be doing more? There's a kind of like an onus, do you think, to put on organizations, onto companies, but then also maybe you kind of go, what can I do? What can I do? Like what I can do is that I can speak out more, and when I'm in meetings, I can speak up and say that I feel like we need to be more we actually need to be more representative. And it's a thing about feeling comfortable about being in a room of a predominantly male heavy space, cis male white space, and saying, actually, this is uncomfortable, and we are talking about programming things that we want to be representative on our stages. Let's do that for our workforces, and let's do that in the people that work in buildings, and also for freelancers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, I agree, there's a lot of initiatives out there which are amazing, but I always think, where do they go after that? What actually happens after that initiative is over, and how are you then evaluating that, and how are you moving forward? Because it's all fine and good saying, well, you know, let's have a young people, you know, community where like we work with them to reflect the work, but actually we don't get to see the insides of that. And actually I think theatres have a duty to do that, to talk about it more with the young people and say, look, you know, this is what we've been doing. Sometimes I don't even see that from some theatres, and I'm like, but I can hear you doing an initiative, but actually show me you're doing that. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's like the let's have a follow-up to it. What's the outcome of it? What's the tangible outcome of it? So yeah.
Long-winded way around it. But so obviously, can you tell us a little bit about the wonderful Bristol Old Vic? So what is it about it that you love about working there?
I love that you use the word wonderful, because it is so wonderful, and I think everyone has that kind of like misty-eyed approach about it, because if you've been to our building, the building itself has such like a character, doesn't it? Like it's got like a charisma to it, and I feel like that follows through to our work, and that follows through to what we put on our stages, and like as you said earlier, we put a lot of work on digitally now, and it still translates that kind of that character, that kind of feel about it. Like, I think a Bristol Old Vic production, and that is a testament to the people who have made it happen, that it has that texture and that feel to it. It's kind of like, it's so beautiful, and its look and its texture, but also the stories, they stay with you for such a long time. And I feel like there's such an ambition within Bristol Old Vic, and the people who work within it are testament to that, especially Tom. He has such great drive and ambition as an artistic director. But so for anyone who doesn't know, we are a regional subsidised producing theatre. So that means that the majority of the work we make, we produce ourselves, usually with co-producers, and they regularly go into the West End, and they tour globally. So we've made Touching the Void, which, like I said, is back in rehearsals now. The Grinning Man, I love. Such a great show. Did you see it?
Yeah, amazing.
Such a good show. The music in it's so beautiful. Long Day's Journey into Night. And then alongside that, we also have a visiting company program that we run alongside that. So we work with companies like Complicité, Wise Children, Gecko, Frantic Assembly, because the idea being that we always want to continue to inspire the artists and the audiences that come to us. And then we also have a fantastic engagement and artist development program. And we've been doing a lot of work recently at the moment about our mission and our vision and values as an organisation, because after the pandemic, there is obviously such a shift, I think, as a industry, but also as an organisation and as a people as well. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think I've certainly changed and grown in different ways throughout the pandemic. And so when we all came back together, we thought this is a really good opportunity to sort of reassess who we are and what we want to do as a theatre. And there are two bits from the vision and mission I'm just going to read to you, because I think it's really like encapsulates what we are as an organisation, right? So, inspire, delight and surprise the people of Bristol and far beyond with excellent live theatre in an atmosphere of creativity, welcome and adventure. And we remember at all times that everything we do is an experiment. That uncertainty makes discovery possible, and that it's our job to explore rather than to define. I always say divine, which is a great word, but it's not the one I want. So I think that like it really like encapsulates what we're like as people. But I think also, if you've seen the work that we do, that phrase of we explore rather than define is really great, because it offers our audiences the opportunity to come on board with us and just for a brief moment, just take some time out from the distractions of the outside world. Where else do you get to be now where you can't have your phone?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I think about this a lot. Where else do you go into a space apart from like a swimming pool, and which is also, do you know what I mean? Which is also a place where your mind just becomes quite like quiet, which I think has a lot to do. I know that we're doing this on social media, and I've already said that I'm not on social media. But like, where else does that happen? Where you don't have any other distractions, and you sit and you watch something, and for 2 hours you get to just explore different ways of thinking, different ways of living, different ways of relating to one another. So yeah, I think that's why it's wonderful, is because we are always striving to do more. We're ambitious, and we like to explore with people. But I mean, it's just such a beautiful place to work. It's really, really beautiful place to work, but also the audiences, the artists that we get to engage with. It's I love it. Don't know if that's coming across.
But I mean, I for us, I mean, I'm based in Leicester, so obviously getting access to your work is so difficult because of travel. So obviously, like, this period of like the last 12 months has been great because the digital stuff gets you to see theatres that you probably don't know about.
Right.
And actually, like, in my head, I'm going, oh my God, how can I get to Bristol more? Or, like, do you know what I mean? Because you do, don't you? You naturally, you're thinking, oh, how can I engage more with that theatre? What can I do to engage with their work more?
Yeah. Which has been so great, because you're right. I think that the thing with digital is that it's always been an ambition for theatres, but it's never been a priority. Because, like I said about that hamster wheel of making shows, but as soon as the pandemic hit, everyone within theatre just went, okay, how do we engage with our audiences when we can't have them in our building? And the answer was digital. And the National did, and so many other theatres did, we said, okay, well, we know that we have a back catalogue of shows that we can put on, and we'll put them on for free so that people can watch and be entertained and can still have culture as part of their lives. Because that's, you know, on the basic level, we all believe that culture should be for absolutely everybody. And I don't know about you, but I have a kind of sense of I've forgotten a little bit of how it feels to be at the beginning of the pandemic and in lockdown. But can you remember that sense of complete uncertainty and just fear and anxiety, and the moment out of people's days to go and watch something that's in the theatre and just to have your mind taken away for a little bit was such an amazing relief, I think, because even though you could still have your phone and you could pause it and you could go back to it, you still were being able to watch people watch something else. Like, I think that's the thing that I really enjoyed about digital theatre, and those early days of when people were putting on shows that everyone had loved in the past, like when we put on Grinning Man, A Christmas Carol at Christmas. You can hear people responding to it. And so much of what we do is about the collective, right? It's about when you're in a space with other people, you can feel how they are, how they're feeling about watching what's happening on stage, and you kind of take on a bit of that energy. And so being able to watch that on YouTube, or watching The Grinning Man and hearing people laughing, or, you know, hearing the songs, and you can kind of like imagine what it was like to physically be there. We started doing that, and I was furloughed at the time. So which was a really weird time, because I was furloughed for about 6 months, and you're seeing all of the great things that Bristol is doing and all the great things that other theatres are doing, and you're like, wow, like theatres and the artists that occupy them and the freelancers around them, they are just such innovative, creative people that as soon as the pandemic happened, they just went straight into action. And, you know, everyone needed that time to process it, but as soon as we'd had that, we just went boom, okay, how can we engage with people? And so we put on the back catalogue of shows that we knew people loved. But then we started going, what else can this do? What else can digital theatre do? What else does it have? Does it have the capacity to reach new audiences? Because as soon as you go, okay, digital, so anyone around the world can watch this, that opens up this whole new idea of where you can reach, and also what do people want to watch? How do people engage with it? So it was really interesting watching that from afar, because I was furloughed at the time. But when I came back, and in January this year, we came back, and I sort of said, okay, there is some really exciting theatre that's happening digitally, and it's not just a archived recording of a show. It's people are doing like murder mysteries, and you know, it's actors that are doing that, and it's theatre companies that are making that. And so, what else can we do that's interactive, and live and digital? And so we started just looking for what was out there, and it's crazy because I would normally program visiting company work that would tour onto our stages. I then started programming digital visiting work, and that was to get your head around going from being a theatre programmer to a digital broadcasting programmer and producer was just like, God, you're just like, what else does this involve? And what are the risks associated with it? Because you just, when you've done theatre for so many years, you kind of know what you need to look out for in a contract. Suddenly with broadcasting, you're like, what else is involved in that? But what I knew worked really well is when people are watching something that's an event. So if we know that a show is live streamed, it's more likely to get a large audience, because I think that thing we were talking about earlier of, I know that this is a collective experience. I know that other people are watching this. It's the same as if, like, when you started doing exercise classes, or I did a yoga class with the yoga studio that I was physically, like, in person doing, and then we did it online. And I was like, oh, actually, because I was doing yoga with Adrian like every day. But then when I did it with the people with my yoga studio and I knew they were all there, suddenly I was way more engaged and I wanted to be there on time. So we started to find that things that have become an event and have become something that's at a certain time, people were really engaged with. But what was also interesting is giving people the opportunity to watch something when it suited them. So things like, we just had Travis Alabanza's Overflow, and we would say that if you looked at our website, it would say 7:30. So you would buy a ticket and you could start watching at 7:30, but then you'd have access to it for 24 hours after. So actually you could start watching it then, and then you could go back to it at another point and pick up. And so this, like, it's just opened up this whole new world of what theatre can do. And that's that whole idea of live streaming, because also, you know, Romantics Anonymous and Flying Lovers, we did that as a live stream. And that's what's happening with Touching the Void. With Touching the Void, we're going to have people there in person as well. And what's really exciting about that is we're going to film the people watching the show. So, you know, like when you're watching a football match, right? Pre-pandemic, when you're watching, if the football's on, you see the football being played, and then the camera will go to the audience, and the audience are cheering, and then they see the camera, and they're like, "Oh, I'm being filmed." We want to create that kind of that atmosphere, that kind of, like, this is the show, and you're watching the show, and there's so many, like, different cameras and like shots for the show, but we're also looking at how the audience are responding to it, because we want to create, like what we were talking about earlier, that feeling of, I can imagine what it feels like to be there and seeing how people are responding to it. And when you do that, you feel like you're a part of it. So even if you're watching at home, you still feel like you're there, because you're watching it at 8 o'clock when everyone else is watching it as well. I went on a huge tangent, but it's that journey of going into digital has been one of so much learning and development and growth, that, you know, we transformed our whole business model so that we are now doing that. Because also, like, we reached new audiences by doing digital. We want to retain them, but also it's like Young Vic. They're also going to be streaming all of their physical productions, because it's like, the world's changed now, and I truly believe that it's adapt or die. Like, we have to respond to how people engage with things now. And you know, for the rest of the year, some people might not want to leave their homes. Right? we can't all assume that everyone's going to want to go to the theatre next week in person. A lot of people are still going to be feeling quite apprehensive or anxious about being in spaces with other people. So how do we cater for people who are feeling anxious and nervous about doing that? So yeah, that hybrid, that live streaming and having people in person is like, it's what we're going for now. It's what we're about. It's really exciting.
And I think that's, like you say, you know, it's about reaching those audiences. And I mean, I think during this pandemic and, you know, looking at these streams, it's made me really consider those audiences that we haven't reached before.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the ones in care homes, or the ones that, you know, physically or mentally can't go and sit in a theatre room. And, you know, it's like, well, why hasn't this been a platform for so long? Why has it been a pandemic that's made people go, oh, actually, why haven't we done this before? But then I think, like you say, hopefully this is a new era for theatre now. You know, there's no excuses for it now. You've done it, you can do it.
Yeah.
So let's keep retaining those audiences, like you say, and keep inviting people in, because I mean, my grandma's 94, she loves the theatre, but she can't go because she's not mobile enough. And then I'm like, well, this is why we need stuff like this to happen, because it's those, you know, when we're on about numbers of mental health within that age range is so, you know, it's massive, isn't it? And I think, like you say, mental health is a massive thing. And I think, like you say, a lot of people are still quite anxious about going. I mean, I've had loads of conversations at work because we're organising a theatre trip. And loads of my colleagues are like, I'm still really anxious about going. Like, I don't know how I feel about being in that space. And I said, I don't think anyone knows how it's going to feel. No one knows, you know, and the way that the state of the theatre from next week is going to look so different by the end of the year anyway, naturally.
Yeah, completely. But I think it's our job as a theatre to show people how it's going to be. Do you know what I mean? Because you're totally right in respecting, because I myself, you know, I've gone through so many like peaks and troughs of going, oh, I feel confident to go into that space. I don't feel confident going into that space. So like I said, you can't always assume that people are going to feel confident, but what we can do is show people what it looks like inside, so that when they say they watch a live stream of Touching the Void and they go, oh, okay, so that's how you go into the front of house, and then that's how you take your seat, and you're that much distance from those people. Okay, yeah, I feel confident to go in. Okay, and I think that's what the live stream is offering, is that opportunity for people to have insight into it before they come in. But absolutely, we can't just say, oh, you know, because they're saying on the 21st of June we can be at full capacity if we want to, and that's next month, you know.
Exactly. And I think we just, like you say, we need to be realistic about it. Like I am very surprised that I haven't seen theatres do that, you know, and think about their audiences and go, right, we need to, because it's 5-10 minutes or a day's work to put a video together. It doesn't need to be high tech. It just needs to be, come into the theatre, this is what it's going to look like. Because I do think that's what's going to affect ticket sales massively.
Oh, totally. And I think, if you jump too quickly, and you don't have that kind of, like you said, all of that work that needs to happen around building confidence back again, people might just go, oh, okay, so that theatre, I'm not going to go to that theatre because I don't know how I'd go into there, so I'm just not going to even entertain it. Whereas, like you said, it doesn't need to be a high-tech video. It just needs to be a walkthrough of, like, you just walk through this door, this is how you get to your seat, this is how you know, you show an e-ticket, all of those things. Because it's obviously so many theatres have it on their websites of, this is what we're doing, but actually somebody just wants to visualize it. I think there's so much about visualizing how your experience is going to be. But yeah, that's such an interesting idea, actually, that we have an obligation to make people feel comfortable and confident about coming back to us.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's something that I've even said, like, next week, because I'm going to the Care for a season launch, and I was like, you know what, maybe it's quite nice to go to something like that rather than a big show. And I said, I'm definitely going to come back that night, and I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to talk about it, because I don't think people will talk about it. They'll just be like, oh yeah, it was really great to be back at the theatre. But I'm like, but what was it really like?
Yeah.
How did you feel when you got in? You know, what had changed, or what did you notice was different?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So how did you feel going in there? Because everyone's been affected by this to varying degrees in terms of their confidence about being back in those public spaces. But actually, you're totally right in having that. What was your experience of it? How did you feel going in and being in those areas and being around that many people? What was in place to make you feel more comfortable? Yeah, I think that's so brilliant that you're looking at it from that way.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I've spoke about, you know, because I said it's as much the fittest job as it is also like the audiences. You know, if you have got that social media, like usual platforms next week, when you go and go, yeah, I really liked how they did this, but I don't know if people think like I do. I think the people that are going to be the ones that are really excited and very open to it, you know, and whatever. But obviously, you've got to remember that there's still a group of people who won't be ready.
Totally. And it's really interesting because the in-person tickets for Touching the Void are sold out. So what we do know is people are craving live experience and in-person experience. So we know that some people are experiencing that, but you're right, we can't make the assumption that those people, that's everybody. We can't make that assumption, right? So it's like, how do we reach people who can't mobily get here, that they can't, you know, they can't come in person? So how do we reach those people? And that's where the live stream comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we spoke about how positive it's been for you guys in terms of, you know, this whole new platform, but what is the impact? How has your theatre been impacted by the last 12 months?
So on the 16th of March, that was the date that Boris Johnson recommended or said that people shouldn't go to the theatre. So that means that like overnight, our earned income just stopped. So that is 80% of our income is through ticket sales, commercial trading, and then 20% is funded. So that ratio, which a lot of theatres in the country would have also had that ratio, that made us then, we weren't a viable business. So after that, we then had to furlough most of our staff, including me. So we only had 14 people working. 14 people working, such a small amount of people. And then after that, we had to go through redundancies. So even though the £1.6 billion bailout was made for theatres, we still had to go through a round of redundancies, which meant that we lost a third of our staff. And so we're a much smaller operation now. And it's really sad actually, because we're doing our Arts Council reporting at the moment, and we've in the period of the 31st of March to the 1st of April this year, 40 productions were either cancelled or delayed, and the majority were cancelled. And it was something like, I've got the numbers here, but it's 334 performances were cancelled or delayed. And so that's 40 productions, that's 40 different creative teams, 40 different audiences that we could have engaged with. And so it's really like, when you look at the reporting of it, you kind of go, we lost out on that, all of those opportunities to put on work and do what we do. So we've come out as a much smaller operation, and that's a really difficult and very, very sad place to be in. Really sad.
And I think that's what I'm really interested in, like the Arts Council, because obviously they will hopefully put a report out on the effects, because I don't think people truly understand how much money has been lost or what has been lost, and, you know, and I hope they'll put it into black and white, you know, like how many people lost their jobs or how many people were furloughed, and, you know. So what do you think the long-term effects are for the Bristol Old Vic coming out of this?
So I feel like long-term effects, we'll have to, as an organisation, like I said earlier, we are trying to reflect on what we now are as a small team and a small operation. We have to reflect on what our missions and our values are. We then have to start, like so many theatres are, rebuilding, which, you know, will take time. And we have to match what our ambitions are with what we can physically do as a smaller company. But I think that if I can use a positive note for such a difficult time, all of those things that we just spoke about in terms of access and transforming our business and transforming what our kind of priorities are, I believe that the long-term effects are actually to how we use our organisation, our theatre, and the people who make it up, including the freelancing workforce, including the people who work in the building, how we use that to continue to explore and strive to do better. Like I heard someone saying this the other day, that all we can do is strive to do better, and that's really what we have to be thinking about as an organization, but as an industry as well.
Yeah,
as an industry, but also as a society. And I think that's what the amazing thing about theatre does. I don't know about you and how you felt, but certainly during the pandemic, there was such a feeling of, if a society doesn't acknowledge or appreciate its culture, then what am I doing? Like, what is what's my purpose here? What's my meaning? And now, thankfully, we are in this position where we now get to really look into that and what our meaning is. And I think the long-term effects for us are working out how to be a more representative and relevant organisation in theatre. Like, how do we make sure that the stories that are being told, the themes that are being explored, and the artists we work with, the audiences that come through are as broad and representative as possible. And like I said, I think carrying that live streaming hybrid with us is the way that we're going to do that. But I mean, it has been so tough in terms of the impact that it had with us over the 12 months. But I think the work that we've been able to do now is allowing us to look forward and grow and strive to do better.
Yeah. So because of obviously, like, you want to move forward with this digital kind of platform as like alongside what you do live, do you think the West End should do that? Because obviously for the West End, they didn't do very much. And actually, it's quite shocking, because when you think how much money that part of the industry alone brings in, there was a real, like, do you know what I mean? There was nothing, there were a couple of things, obviously, like, you know, Andrew Lloyd Webber and stuff, but do you think there's a reason behind why they've never had archives and stuff, or, you know, and do you think they have a duty as well as part of the industry to be more digitally forward?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I mean, I'm not well informed on all the numbers for the commercial theatres and in the West End, but I think from a personal level, all I can say is it would be so great if all of the huge, beautiful, amazing shows like you know, like Phantom of the Operas and the Wickeds and like all of that, if that could be streamed, that would be great. I mean, you only really have to think about can they make as much money, I guess, is what they're really thinking about. And their structure of how they run financially is different to ours. We're subsidized, but I wonder whether that is the thing that's holding them back, is that they can fill every seat because they know that it's really popular. They can fill every seat in Hamilton because they could do that for years and years, and they've got an incredible touring industry as well. So it's yes, I would love it if they could do digital work and they could do that more. But you're right. Where were Andrew Lloyd Webber, they had some, you know, I can remember watching Cats, and I was like, actually, this is so great that he's doing this, he's making this available. Such a nostalgia trip. But you're right, like, why weren't other producers doing that and other theatres doing that? So yeah, and at a personal level, I think it would be so great if we could all just do this, the more accessible, just being more accessible, making it more available to people.
Yeah.
I can't afford a ticket. I've never seen The Lion King. Like, I can't afford a ticket. I've never, like, there's so many things that, because there are so many things at the West End that I haven't seen because I can't afford the ticket to go and see it, right? And I work in theatre.
But this is why I think this is the one bugbear of that part of the industry that I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand why, you know, those prices now don't reflect the society that we live within.
Totally.
Therefore, why are we charging? It's a massive bugbear. I'd love to sit down with them, but like, you know, it's not reflective. What, you know, if you want to inspire young audiences to go to a theatre and see these big shows, why are you allowing the charges to be like 60, 70, 80 or whatever pounds?
Yeah.
Because for a young person, that could be their week's wages, or, you know, and it's not reflective of the society we live within.
No.
And, you know, it's like you were saying, you know, they can get bums on seats, so therefore they don't think that far ahead towards digital. And sometimes I'm like, that's not an excuse though.
No.
It's really not. Yeah, it's great that you can fill your houses every single night, but are you reaching out to other audiences?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's so bizarre. I just don't understand.
It is so bizarre also because, you know, like for me at Bristol Vic, it's so at the forefront of my mind in everything I do that I want to make sure that what we're doing is as successful as possible. I've said it so many times, but like, I just don't understand how that's not even within the commercial theatre's, you know, ambitions and even on the basic level. I'm sure there are, and I'm sure I'm just being really broad with my like assumptions. Do you know what I mean? But I can't afford to pay £200 to go and watch Hamilton. I can't afford it. When did that become a thing? Like, it's, like, I can remember reading about it like years ago when they started charging those kind of prices, and someone wrote a really brilliant article that was like, just because people will buy it doesn't mean that you should charge that amount.
No, because it's exploited.
Yeah, and you set a precedence then, because then other theatres would be like, oh, well, you charge £200, well, we can do that. We can bump it up and then put booking fees on. And it's just, you know, you're right, it's not reflective of the society that we live in.
Yeah, as much as I love them all, like, I do love it.
Yeah, I love it, yes.
Sorry guys, I do love it. But like, you know, and some people, like, I mean, there's obviously bootlegs all over YouTube and stuff, and I'm like, it happens anyway. Yeah. But why not put your stamp on it? Why not show the real preferences of what you do? You know, it's like the Curve have done an amazing job over the lockdown. Yeah. You know, and they've shown that you can actually do it with a big star production. And like you were with Touching the Void, like, it is, you can do it. Like, it's such a bugbear. Such a bugbear.
Yeah. Well, it should be. I'm totally on board with you. Let's sit down with them. Like,
honestly, I just need to get Cameron Mackintosh on it, and then I'll have words with him. But
that'd be amazing. I'd love to watch that.
That's my goal. But it's, I don't know. I just don't think they do enough groundwork. I don't think they start from the actual bottom and look at society as a whole and how, you know, how they want to access the arts. What do they think needs to be happening? Because for years there was like a scheme, wasn't there, where you get like half-price tickets. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like a few years ago. There was like half-price tickets or something for young people, and it was like this. I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with the West End, and it was like there was like money off for like young people, and it was such a fantastic initiative. And then it just fell. It just never existed anymore, and I was like, but why not? Like,
why not? Where did it go? And what, and also, like, that's setting up a kind of idea that you're kind of saying that it looks really good to do that, but maybe they're going, oh, we'll set up this initiative for the time being, because then people will kind of go, young people will say, well, I loved going to watch that for half price, it was so good, so actually maybe I'll pay the other half price to go and watch it. No.
It's mad, isn't it? I need to find it, because it's such a great, it was a fantastic initiative. And I remember, like, really enjoying what it did, and I saw so much stuff because it was easy to, you know, and
yeah.
I mean, me and my friend Mark, we did a Q&A about theatre bloggers, and said, you know, we are very lucky that we get a lot of press tickets. We're very fortunate in that sense. But I said, but I'm very, very passionate about still contributing into the theatre, even though you stand, you know, because as I said, although it's great getting those opportunities to do it for free, it sometimes feels almost then forced. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh God, right, so they pay me to do that, so I've got to make sure I reflect what that is.
Yeah.
It's such a strange, it's really strange. Like, even like moving forward, like I've always been the kind of person that's, even with a lot of work, I tend to pay to watch shows more than I actually get free tickets for.
And that's a
I'm
choice.
like, because I'd rather see it and pay the money, because then I think it's more, you appreciate it more, I think, as well. Like, you go in there with a new experience.
I think you feel part. I don't know where I'm going. I think you feel like you are a part of that, because when you're buying a ticket, you're saying that I'm investing in it, and I value you. I value what you're doing. I'm placing value on it. You know, it's like this capitalism world of material, of like, we live in a material world, and giving money is how we show our value. But it's like how when friends, like hairdressing friends, who say, I want to cut your hair for free, it's like, no, I want to pay for it, because I value you, and I value everything that you've done to get to this point. And actually, by making it okay not to pay for it, you're then setting up a culture where you go, well, it's the same with the Fringe, actually. If it's this, you know, what's it called, when you're kind of accredited, and you can go and watch loads of different shows for free on a comp system. We, as Bristol Bit, were like, but actually, should we be not paying these artists so that we can go and see them? That doesn't feel right. So I'm totally on board with that. I think that's the right thing to do, of paying more than just taking free tickets. I really, really, I really like that. I might steal that from you.
Because it's such an interesting, like, you know, because I think there's a lot of, obviously, with viewers and stuff, and there's so many conversations, and I've heard people go, well, I didn't go and see that show because they didn't invite me to the press night, and I'm like,
no way.
No, don't say that. Because it's like Emily, you know, Emily's a perfect example, I think, for myself. You know, it was a show that I got a press for, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the best thing in the world. So as soon as I heard it was coming back, I was like, right, I'm buying tickets, because I know it's a good show and I want to invest in it. But I could have easily just dropped them an email and been like, well, you know, but no, because I think actually, I want to pay it into you. I want to see it, you know, and I want it to be like that. But it's just a very interesting conversation. So, over the last 12 months, then, has there been a show that Bristol Old Vic has streamed which has been your favourite?
Oh, so I produced a thing called The Gathering, which was like a so it was like a cabaret meets chat show where Tom Morris was the host, and it was streamed from the theatre. But all of the guests of the chat show were on Zoom. So so already that's just like the marketing team had such a hard time of trying to describe what this was. But Tom was on stage behind a desk, and then we had a plasma screen next to him, and we would stream in different artists on the bill, and they would perform a piece that they put together. So we had Audrey. So Audrey sang "Stay" from Amelie.
Love her.
It was amazing. So we would have Audrey come on and do a piece, and then Tom would do a Q&A with them. Same with Travis Alabanza was there, and Tom would do a Q&A with them. And it was so interesting to produce, quite technically confusing, but actually the feeling that we created, because it was interactive. So it was on Zoom webinar, so people could type questions in, and Tom would read the questions, and he would ask them to the artists. but because it was interactive, that created that same thing you and I are talking about of liveness and feeling like other people are experiencing the same thing you are at the same time. And we had Chris Cox, who's a Broadway and West End magician, and he took over the Zoom and he would start doing magic tricks with people in the audience. And then the audience got to see the audience members that were being pulled up and having tricks being played on them. And it was like we'd created a cabaret show, but in a Zoom world. And I just absolutely loved that. It's the first of anything that Bristol Old Vic's ever done before. And I really would love people to see a recording of it to see what it was like, because to describe it, it's so hard to describe what it was. But that I absolutely loved. And I think the audiences that watched it were like, we really needed that. Because watching a traditional show is really great for nostalgia or for introducing people to your style of work, but actually taking a whole new concept and making it so much more creatively exciting, but also the people who watched it, there was only one performance of it. And so the people who were watching felt like it was really exclusive. So yeah, The Gathering, I absolutely loved it.
You just need to bring it back then. I think that's what
I would love to. We had like 9 different artists, like so Louis Mascal from The Grinning Man was in it with Audrey, and they had a video at the end where they were singing Beauty and the Beast from The Grinning Man, beautiful song. They had that in there, and yeah, we had like 9 different artists on there. So it was so interesting to produce. And I just think, like, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like I can't wait to see what the digital audiences are going to be like going forwards. I can't wait to see what kind of numbers we'll get. Will we get more numbers in autumn? Are we going to get more? Are we still going to sustain the same numbers, even though people can start going outside and it's summer and it's warm? And, you know, traditional theatre audience, you don't really put things on in July and August because you assume people are going to be outside. So it will be really interesting to see if we do that again, what the kind of take up will be, and when people want to see it. Can we do half the artists live at Bristol Old Vic, actually in person, and then half of them on Zoom, and then we also have an in-person audience and an online audience? Like,
there you go.
No,
Got to pitch that one.
You workshopped it. Amazing.
So to kind of tie it up then, do you want to tell us a little bit about Touching the Void? Because obviously that's like the next one coming up. So can you tell us a little bit about Touching the Void and also why you chose to tell that story?
Yeah, I think it feeds into the conversation that we were having around this idea of a global audience and how far can we reach our audience. And Touching the Void is quite I think it's, you know, the book and the film are quite well known and well loved and around the world. And so we wanted to think of a show that would really appeal to as wide an audience as possible. And it's a fantastic show. The reviews are fantastic for it. It's I absolutely love the show. I'm really biased by it, but there is such a thrill to it. And I don't know if you ever saw the kind of marketing material around it, but everyone was like, how are they going to do it? Everyone was like, how are they going to create the same kind of environment that actually was happening for Joe and Simon in person? How are they going to create that on stage? And I never want to ruin it for people, but you know, you can see pictures of it, but I never want to ruin how you see it from an audience's perspective. And I now feel that same kind of excitement of how are they going to do it for live stream? Because once you start adding on that technical element to it, you start going, okay, that's really exciting. Can we get a camera onto a mountain, and like, can we get different angles from that? And it's, I think for Tom and for the creative team that worked on that show, I think it's really creatively exciting to now try and see it through a different lens. But also, like I said, we've got an in-person audience. So we've got like 190 people in per night, which is going to feel, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but to have that many people in a space watching a show is kind of mind-blowing to me, because we haven't had that since would have been Romantics Anonymous or Private Peaceful last year, or Beauty and the Beast. Can't remember. But it's that, it feels like such a long time. I don't know about you, but this last lockdown has just felt like a lifetime. That first
Just
night, just a bit. That first night when the audience come in and they're sat down, and then the company come out on stage, we can't wait for that. I think everyone's been craving connection, and the knowledge that when the company come out on stage, they're going to be met by an audience that want to watch that show physically and on live stream. It's just going to be the most amazing feeling. I think that will feel like, right, we're back now. Let's get to work, that kind of feeling. And so we started in-person rehearsals today. We've got another week of rehearsals next week, and then it starts in the week of the 24th. So 2 weeks away.
It's gone so quick.
I know. And it's only 4 performances of it as well. So that's the other interesting thing about, I worked on Flying Lovers of Vitebsk with Wise Children, and you go through a production period and a rehearsal period, and then it's up, and then next thing you know, it's finished because it's only 4 performances. But I mean, that means that there's like an exclusive amount of time to be able to watch the show. And so I can't wait for people to experience it again. And I also cannot wait to see what they do with the live streaming and the filming of it. It's going to be so exciting.
Yeah. And I guess for you guys, it'd be nice to have that experience. I guess for you, I hope that you'll have that experience of like going into the live audience one and then having that live stream, because those 2 experiences will be so different. Like naturally, won't they?
Yeah, naturally really different. But I feel like the atmosphere should be shared. Do you know what I mean? That whole idea of turning the camera to look at the audience and seeing how they're responding to what's happening on stage. You then have that kind of like empathy for it, and then you imagine sitting in that audience and seeing it all happen, but being at home with your family. Like, that's what's so exciting about it, isn't it? Is that it's what I think we've been missing is seeing how the audience are responding to what's happening. I think I haven't seen that, I don't think, yet. So that's what's so exciting about it, is it's opening up a new way of experiencing theatre. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, and it's like you were saying as well, though, it's like that connection that people have been craving. And I think doing it digitally and having that, you know, panning around, you're going to bring that connection naturally, because you are drawing into those people. And it's not just because obviously with streams, it's a case of you just sitting and watching, and actually sometimes you lose that connection, I think, sometimes naturally, because you haven't got those close-ups, you can't see those emotions. But I think that's what is so good about digital. I mean, coming from like having like a live audience experience, I think that's what I've loved about digital a bit more, is that actually I've felt more of a connection with certain pieces, because I've been like, you've drawn me in more. And when you're sat in your theatre and you're like far away, you're like, you are connected, but there's a bit of reality there and a bit of truth that I think is always lost, like naturally. It's a really
interesting. That's so interesting that because also, don't you feel that there's been like an additional layer of creativity put into it? Because actually, when you're looking at the camera and you're looking at those close-ups, you realize that those close-ups have been put into the creative process. So they've gone, this is a new filmic language, and we want to kind of show you these different bits that you might not have seen if you were sat watching in the theatre. We want to give you a new perspective on it. Look at this, and you're like, why are they showing me that? What do they want me to what do they want me to see?
And that's exactly what I got off when I watched Colour Purple with Curve. Now I saw Colour Purple when it first came, and I absolutely adored it, and there was something about it that I just loved on day one. But watching it on that stream, couldn't stop crying. I was like, what the hell? And it was because there was just something about, there was a real beauty in what they did, and Nikolai's amazing in what he wanted to do and what his vision was for it. But I was like, God, why haven't we had this before? Like, I was sat there like, why hasn't this happened before? Why aren't we using, you know, like we were saying earlier, because the digital layer is something that's so vital for theatre that I think can sometimes be lost. And I do think there's conversations there of why it's so important moving forward, for sure.
Totally. But like, what a wonderful and exciting thing to come out of all of this, because for sure it's been devastating, but actually how exciting is that new level of like, what are they trying to show us? We're now bringing in directors of photography, like we're bringing in this kind of like filming language, and so you could watch it in person and then you could watch it on a live stream and see things that you've never seen before, and it will remind you of watching it in person. I think it is like we're creating a new art form on top of one that we've already got, or maybe we're just growing it out into what it can be. But yeah, it's really exciting.
I think that's the problem though moving forward, isn't it? There's like sitting in an audience. I don't want to be far back no more.
yeah, you see all the close-ups.
I mean, it's expensive, but sit me on the front. I might not eat for a week, but sit me on the front so I can actually understand what's going on. Because that was my problem with like Miss Saigon. Like Miss Saigon is a fantastic musical, but the first time I saw it, I was up in the gods. Didn't know what was going on.
You can't see anything up there.
And I just,
anything up there.
I lost so much of the story, and I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand. And I think, like you say, the digital form has just created a whole new understanding. And I think for me personally, I've kind of gone, as much as I love live theatre, there's still something about digital that I'm like, I kind of want to keep it. Like, can I just keep a little bit of it? Because I don't want it to go. And I do feel a bit concerned personally that I think some theatres will just strive for the live audiences, and they'll strive for that normality of bringing people in, and I do think that will happen, because I just think some theatres maybe won't have the team to facilitate that part of their programme, and I think that's something that needs to be spoke about, that although yes, there's fantastic theatres that are going to do it, it's about supporting those ones that maybe aren't going to be able to do it. So how can we support them as a community? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally do. Do. Yeah, because also what we're talking about is retaining audiences that they've collected through digital, so new audiences that perhaps can't get to theatres physically, like we spoke about earlier, or that they don't have the dispendable income to just go and buy a ticket in person. We have a ambition going forward to make our as much of our work as a pay what you can as possible.
Good.
Because that creates a greater level of access to our work. But you're right in how do we support those theatres who aren't even considering retaining the digital aspects of their work that they've done? How do we support them? How can we allow them to continue to allow culture at an affordable, accessible price and access point? Yeah. That's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about, when you're in an organization or when you're in a theatre, that you can get so kind of, what are we doing? But having moments like this where you can open up your perspective and say, okay, but how do we help this theatre, and how do we help this theatre, and how as a consumer do you help out those areas as well by donating, or even writing to them and saying, I really benefited from your digital. I really benefited from it, and I don't feel confident enough to come in person as much as I would love to. Please continue doing this, because it's such great feedback for a theatre to know how much digital has impacted its audiences. Yeah.
How interesting.
So interesting.
So just one final question then, my lovely. So how can people get involved with the Bristol Old Vic, and what do you think is important for you guys moving forward? How would you like to be supported? So you can support us by coming to watch our shows, coming to watch the work that we put on, and our programme going forward, and talking about all the things that we were just saying of supporting theatres through talking about how it's affected them, how digital has affected them, how the work and what they've done over the pandemic has been of benefit to their well-being. I know it's a kind of big statement to make, but I feel like theatre is one of the places where we really truly get to
reflect on how we're doing in terms of our emotional and mental well-being. I feel like there's like a really interesting quote that I always think about whenever I'm programming or doing anything to do with the theatre. It's like love and art is the process of seeing yourself in something that's not you. So we always are, when we have a piece of theatre in front of us or we're watching something, we go, how am I doing with this this certain theme? How am I doing? And especially around like things that happen with the pandemic, you kind of want to create and continue this community feeling that I think has been so important during this time and this connection. So come and see the work that we do. If you want to go to a young company like I did when I started out, come to ours. Come to ours in our engagement department. If you're interested in becoming you're an artist and you want to be engaged with Bristol Vic, come to our and talk to Ben Atterbury, who's our ferment producer, he's artist development, and just come and be physically in the theatre. And if you don't feel confident enough yet, come and watch what we're doing with our live streams.
Lovely and summed up. We have spoke for a good
I know.
hour and a half. How fun!
But it went really quickly. It went really quickly.
It's been so lovely chatting to you though, Sean. I really appreciate it. I'm actually in Bristol next month, so I need to pop by.
Come and see it. Come and see it.
Yeah, I will. I definitely will. Because it'd be nice to just come and see it in the flesh and obviously get that vibe for sure. But it's been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for popping by, and good luck with Touching the Void. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see what it's about, and can't wait to see these dynamics that you've got in. So thank you so much, Sean.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Take care. Bye bye bye.
Bye bye. Oh, how lovely was Sean. I'm so sorry that was so long. It was like an hour and a half. I didn't expect it to be that long. But a very interesting chat about the state of theatre moving forward, and Bristol Old Vic are doing an amazing job at thinking ahead after the pandemic, because although there is a light at the end of the tunnel, there is still a few things that need to be straightened out. But thank you so much for joining me for Theatre and Tonic this evening. I am back again tomorrow at 6:30, where I'll be chatting to Amina Hamid, who is the youngest West End producer, and oh my god, this girl is amazing. Sean has been really lovely to speak to as well. I think two very incredible women this week. So join me back here tomorrow at 6:30. Have a lovely evening, and I shall see you very soon. Cheers.